Ever wondered what would have happened if Eren was able to finish the rumbling? In an attempt to gain freedom, he unleashes the Titans, putting the whole world at risk of extinction. However, his goals would be cut short. That is why today we will explore the hypothetical scenario in which Eren did complete the rumbling, and spoiler alert, it would have huge consequences. But first, let's rewind to the beginning for some context. Eren was a young boy who lived with his parents until he helplessly witnessed his mother being eaten by a Titan. This would then lead to Eren's intense hatred towards the Titans as he swore to wipe all of them off the face of the earth. He struggled in his early life as he and his fellow Eldians were continually pushed for the crimes of their ancestors, giving him the life goal to be free. In his mind, freedom was the most important goal. Yet, as long as the people who mistreated them still existed, they would never be free. Going back a couple hundred years, the rumbling was a defense created by King Karl Fritz to prevent others from attacking Paradise Island. The rumbling meant the use of Titans within the walls, which were intended to destroy anyone who dared to attack. However, he knew the consequences, so unless an enemy came to attack, he would not intentionally release them. Following this, Eren became the new holder of the Founding Titan, which was able to control all other Titans. Using his powers, he releases the Titans and causes the rumbling. This would mean Eldia and their enemies would have to work together to take him down, and that had the power to begin healing their relationship. He was carrying out the ultimate plan, resulting in the destruction of the Titans, while simultaneously freeing the Eldians from the burden of their past. He was also able to see the future as well as the past due to his powers. He started the rumbling, and within days, the army of the colossal Titans along with Eren and his founding Titan reached the mainland of Marley. He had destroyed about 80% of the world. His friends beg him to stop, but Eren tells them that he has no plan to do that. Eren himself explains that he will take all of the world's freedom so he can achieve his own, but he promises not to take away the Alliance's freedom to stop his plans. Therefore, Mikasa was left with no choice and located Eren's head on the end of a long spine within the mouth of his Titan, killing him by cutting his head off. Seeing Mikasa's choice, Ymir abandoned her hold over the Founding Titan, ending both the rumbling and the power of the Titans. But we aren't here to discuss what happened, but rather what would have happened. What would have happened if Mikasa didn't manage to kill Eren, instead failing, leaving the rumbling at full force? Well, there are two possible scenarios to what could have taken place. Let's start off with number one, the most likely. In this theoretical world, after completing the rumbling, the entire world population would be wiped out, with the Titan stomping off everybody, killing his friends, and destroying the planet. Eren will then return to Paradise and live his remaining 4 years. However, this would be far from the end. Since there's no outside threat to Paradise anymore, a civil war begins between the Jaegerists. If they are the only people on the planet, the only enemies they have are themselves. As the battle among the people on the island starts getting worse, the one united group breaks into different factions, each fighting for power. The struggle for control within the city threatens to erase the freedom they achieve and plunges Paradise into a time of war. To add to these problems, Eren was far from a worthy leader. He had always been an unstable person, which would have made the problem even worse. His impulsive decisions and not very strategic thinking only worsened things. Many of his followers began to question his ability to lead them, and he would become hated. He could try to argue he did what he did only because he saw it in future memories. But then he would be called a lunatic and would spend the remainder of his time in despair. He'd either be locked away or praised as a god and be known as the man who destroyed the world. But this wouldn't matter in the long run because Paradise would most likely collapse. The Titans destroying the world is not something that should be taken lightly. A result of environmental disasters building up from the rest of the planet could ultimately be what ends up killing any last survivors. Huge wildfires would be created by the Titans' destruction and would burn millions of forests and cause global damage crisis. At the same time, the constant force to Earth's surface would lead to seismic disturbances, causing earthquakes that further destabilize the already fragile nature. And to top it all off, polluted water sources with debris and toxins would be deadly. This pollution would make it impossible for consumption. Also, if that wasn't enough, the many dead and rotten bodies would cause diseases that could potentially kill the remaining population. Whichever way it happens, everyone would die, all Titans destroyed, all humans gone. In the final moments, he could travel the planet in his Titan until he dies, enjoying the worthless scenery, the last human left. Planet destroyed, all life wiped out, the end. While at first the rumbling seemed as a road to freedom in an attempt to unite nations, it quickly turned into a catastrophic event, exterminating all life in the long run. That would have been a bit of a depressing and disappointing end, let's be real. But there is another scenario, a more exciting one, in which life wouldn't be completely destroyed. This alternate reality would begin where the previous one also began. The rumbling would have gone on, thus killing all life outside of Paratus. After the rumbling, Eren would have regenerated fully within his Titan and started having breakdowns over all those he had killed. He was in shock by the destruction he had caused. Everything was completely destroyed, gone in ashes. He would have most likely connected with an object that best represented each of his friends, and upon his arrival at Paratus, he would bury the objects under the tree. After grieving, Ymir would show herself to Eren. She would then disappear and reincarnate into Historia's child to experience freedom. With Ymir's reincarnation, paths would fall, and Eren would be the last Titan shifter. Time passes, and Eren would settle in Shiganshina, where he witnessed the rebuilding of Paratus. However, his guilt would be too much, being most likely in extreme depression, not being able to stop thinking about those he has killed. His guilt is at times overwhelming, and he would drink his sorrows away at the local pub. He does find some sentiment in the safety of Paratus and him gaining his freedom, but his recent trauma is what mostly occupied his mind. Eren visits his friends' graves regularly and cries whenever he begins reminiscing of his time spent in the Scouts. He would miss them all, especially Armin and Mikasa. Suicide was an option Eren often considered so that he could be with them, but he knows that he must be punished for his sins and cannot take the easy way out. He truly was living a gruesome and depressed life. Finally, Eren decides to secretly meet with Historia to see the child and his only friend. He realizes that this child was born free. He holds the child and says, "You are free," as all the suffering and death was not in vain because this child and all other children are free. They have what Eren never had when he was born, true freedom. For the first time, Eren smiles post-rumbling. A rebuilding effort begins and finds success, and nationalism is on the rise. Paratus has been renamed and people are occupied with rebuilding their lives and nation. Paratus would have the capacity to colonize the entire world and use all its natural resources to develop itself without any competition. This would help in the struggle against ecological disasters, getting just enough resources to survive the lack of ecosystem. Also, the curse of Ymir would be dispelled, which would allow Eren to live his life without a time limit. However, there would still be problems, like bad healthcare systems leaving survivors fighting with health problems, since access to medical services becomes a luxury during the ruins of the island. With its infrastructure also in large decline, many of the wounded and sick would suffer a slow and painful death. Also, many people, especially the Jaegerists, may live in regret, traumatized by the mass extinction of the world population. Even if they didn't directly cause it, there will always be a sense of remorse for all those who died. Meanwhile, Eren lives on with his guilt, but accepts his decision. The Jaegerists let go of the search for Eren and instead focus on creating a stable government. In the end, he had achieved his goal since he was a young boy to give freedom to his people. But wait, what if the rumbling actually happened in real life? Could the state of the world as we know it really prevent such a thing from happening? Does humanity have what it takes to defeat the Titans? Well, I did a lot of research and came up with some interesting findings. To understand the incredible phenomenon that would have to take place, it's important to understand the strength, capabilities, and weaknesses of both sides. Humans may be small and inferior when it comes to being compared to the Titans, but for what they lack in size, they make up for it in firepower. In the Second World War, conflict between the Axis powers and the Allies ushered in an age of technological advancement, the likes of which no one had ever seen before. In previous wars, countries were only able to get their hands on weapons like artilleries, battleships, tanks, and machine guns until they came across the atomic bomb in 1938. Now in the show, we see that the combined military of the world is completely helpless against the Wall Titans. They tried shooting them from the water with battleships, from the land with artillery, and even throwing bombs on them with planes. However, even with all of that, they were only able to kill a few Titans. Judging from the setting of the series, we could safely assume they lived somewhere between the 1920s and the 1930s. Awesome! This would mean humanity gained nuclear power right on time before Eren decided to put us to sleep. Phew! But wait, a lot has happened between now and the 1930s. Nuclear bombs should be 10 times as strong as they were in the past, right? Well, fans have estimated the number of wall titans to be around 600,000, with each titan standing about 50 meters in height and having about 12.5 meters in width. And with Haji's analysis, we can assume that they move at a speed of about 50 kilometers per hour, making them really fast. This would mean that, while they did work on Reiner and Zeke, stationary artillery from the land or sea would fail, as the wall titans would reach our shores within minutes. Even if we were to drop a bomb big enough to take out 50,000 titans, with each bomb having a 10-kilometer radius, that would still leave 550,000 of them remaining. However, if you think about it, the objective isn't to see how many titans we can kill, it is to end the rumbling. All we would need is a Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning to locate the exact location of Zeke on Eren's spine to stop the rumbling, and then a fellow Eurofire Typhoon to drop a mean one on Eren's head to seal the deal. Now that's how you end a rumbling, in style.